All right. So what I did for you guys is I wrote down some things that I thought would be based on what we were all talking about, the days of play and afterwards, and then feedback from other players. This was, for guys that are joining, and just the reason I thought this would be interesting is you have, Josh, Mr. Solotron, who's done a ton of these events, right? And then compared to myself, where this was my first real multi-day mil sim, and then we've got, James, Mr. Mustang here, that's, traveled the world, that's done these events too. So I thought we could give some different perspective to those who are joining us here live, and then talk about some of the things that are meaningful to Airsoft players and those who maybe have played Milsim before, who maybe have attended a specific event, or who want to attend events like this. And what was interesting too was about the area, right? This Muscatatuck Urban Training Center. Yeah, Muscatatuck.
How do you pronounce that? In my video, I said
just like it sounds. Muscatatuck.
Yeah.
I think it's some sort of Indian thing, but I don't think there was actually a town of Muscatatuck from what I heard. Everything just named as Muscatatuck River, the training facility, and so forth. I thought it was kind of funny that we went to the middle of the heartland of America to play at an urban complex.
Absolutely. And that was, and again, this place was of epic lore, right? Everyone was talking about how incredible it is, and it was, right? And we're going to get into that. But it was a cool place, and it was right there in southeast Indiana, so right there in the middle of the heartland. So I think if you guys don't mind, I want to let's start with the play area itself. And I know, James, you just dropped a YouTube video on this, and even Josh, you mentioned as well about the size of the space. And I guess from my perspective, looking at it from Google Maps, my brain didn't wrap around it until I got on the field about how massive the space was and the environment, the building. So maybe, James, if it's okay, maybe we start with you, because again, you just dropped a video on this and you kind of touched on the size of the space, and then maybe talk about the terrain. Mm-hmm. And then maybe Josh, you can talk about some of the structures we played in and around, and then maybe how far the AO was versus the FOB and the walking distances. So maybe, James, if you don't mind, start with you and kind of just talk about the size of the space and the different type of terrain that was included in the space.
Yeah, I think it was one of the, in terms of a playing area, it's certainly one of the largest places I played at, if not the biggest square area. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a mile square, possibly. It's probably not far off a mile square. And the way it was set out was, it is a military training area. So, but there was lots of different areas. If you like, do you remember that TV show, like the Crystal Maze? Do you remember that TV show? In the UK, there's a thing called the Crystal Maze. There was different zones. There was like an Aztec zone and an industrial zone.
Oh, okay.
It was a bit like that.
Yeah.
So it was like a huge area, but there was zones. There was like an earthquake zone. There was a flood zone. There was an Afghan village zone. There was an industrial zone. So there was a hospital zone. There was a residential zone. So that's what it was like. So each of these individual areas had very unique ways of playing them, but they were separated by quite a large amount of space. So how I saw it playing over the course of the 2 days was these areas were amazing to fight in. But once one team got an area locked down, they became like fortresses because there was large open spaces between each of the zones. And that's kind of my perspective of how it played.
No, I agree. Josh, any thoughts?
So my first visit there, I've actually been seeing videos of previous events in the early or mid 2000s before they shut it all down to Airsoft. And I had an idea. I didn't realize the amount of space in between the places. I felt most comfortable in places where I was obviously running a ghillie, so I wanted to be near trees and green. And the shantytown was an area that I felt really comfortable in because it was kind of chaotic and it had a lot of overgrowth, and you could skirt the outside edge of right at the edge of the map was just a deep, deep forest. So I think it's really, in that particular scenario, trying to find a spot that you feel the most effective in, and to me that's how I usually play. If I'm good in a spot, I'm going to go back to it and I'm going to try to milk it as best as I can.
I was amazed how few players went into that area of wooded forest on the edge of the shantytown. Every time I went in there, I thought, right, there's going to be people in there hiding. I'm going to get ambushed, and I moved through slowly. 2 or 3 times I went through there, and I didn't encounter any players in there at all. I don't know whether it was because people were afraid of going in there because it was so wooded and difficult to move through. I'm not sure. But for me, that was a really key part of the map, that wooded area next to the shantytown. Once you locked that down, you could control the shantytown and you could stop the enemy team getting to the shantytown as well. I'm surprised that the TAM team especially didn't get to grips with that area very well at all over the weekend.
They did have a fence line that they don't think they could really have jumped without a lot of effort.
Right.
So they kind of had to funnel into the town. And then you were on the inside woods closest to their fob, whereas I was actually on the woods on the far side where the junkyard kind of area was.
Yep.
Holding that off as best as I could. I ended up getting a capture point by myself, and got a chance to call it in.
It suited our gillies. It suited our gillies a lot down there. Airsoft Dad, where was the area that you were around the most? Because you were with us a lot of the time on Sunday, I think, or was it Saturday
Sunday.
you were with us?
Yeah. So I spent most of my time in the shantytown area. I think we got up to the kill house one time. That's when this guy jumped out and eradicated all of us, and Josh wasn't exactly sure what's going on, who to shoot or who not.
The guy runs out and he goes, I got him. And I was like, what's happening? And then we all got smoked. It was all right, though.
It was a great move. And so that's where I spent most of my time. And I also, I was kind of in that first phase when you get where those buildings were, none that you can go into, but kind of up and around the school, the church. I played outside there a lot, and then I moved up towards that water tower, which got into shantytown. But just, James, to your point on size, I did Google map it this morning. So from A to B straight line, so from the junkyard to our FOB was 0.9 miles. That's straight line. Now, walking, it was probably close to 2 miles, if not more.
Wiggle through
exactly. Yeah. So it was a lot of walking, and that's really why that Saturday it kicked my butt.
Show.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. If anybody was going to go to the event again, or anybody who's going to go for the first time, you really have to be aware there was a lot of walking. You do have to pace yourself. I mean, I'm not super fit, but I'm reasonably fit. And by sort of 5 o'clock on Saturday, I was thinking, I'm not sure I can push much harder at this pace, and I'm going to play well tomorrow. And by 5 o'clock, I slowed down. And yeah, I must have put a lot of miles in. I was doing a lot of running, and people, if anyone's going to go to the area, they need to be aware that there's a lot of walking and hiking involved.
No, absolutely. I mean, I went back to FOB like a 1 o'clock. No, I'm sorry, 2 o'clock to reload, and I would say a third of our team was there drinking water and under the shade, and we all saw guys go down. I mean, there's one guy under the water tower is next to Patrick. I'm like, this guy's skin color tells it all. He's out. Like, this guy was a color I've never seen. And it was rough. It was hot, a lot of walking. You couldn't drink enough, and you get to a point where water just tasted disgusting, right?
Yes, no, 100%. That's one thing. You can't drink enough water. You get to a stage where it does even nice bottled water starts to taste. Ugh, I can't drink much more of this. I need something with flavour. One thing that I've taken with me from past experience, which served me really well at this event, was I had like little squeezy packs of peanut butter and cheese and moist squeezy snacks with a lot of sort of protein, energy and sugar in, and that really helped get through the day. And that's certainly something I didn't see a lot of people have. There's a lot of people, kids and adults as well, wearing their plate carriers without packs on, and they were just had you can see they had a bottle. They didn't have hydration, they didn't have any snacks or food on them. And the more experienced players, when they were stopping at the respawn zones, they were pulling out snacks, and that was something that I think a lot of players need to take into account. It's not just about having ammo on you. You need to have food, energy and protein on you to get through the day.
Because Josh mentioned before the event, he mentioned cardio, how important it was just to have the cardio fitness, being the veteran of these events, veterans of the event, where the amount of walking you do is one thing, but I think as a player, a new player to the style, what I didn't appreciate was, before I got there, was you have the amount of walking, plus you have the adrenaline dump, and you have all that stuff that happens when you're playing. So you're moving, and your body's moving at a velocity or pace that it doesn't normally go through, even if you're just jogging, right? I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. It just sucks it out. You get an adrenaline dump, then you go down and up and down and up and down. And by a few hours in, as an open play type player, you don't experience this level of discomfort over that long of a period. And that's why, you know, someone just asked you to track your steps. I think someone came off the field and they said something like, I don't know, 50,000 steps on Saturday. I don't know if that's what they said, whether or not it's true or not, it could be, but it was miles, you know, miles and miles of walking it took. I want to talk about also equipment. And one of the things that I felt you guys felt was a game changer for this event was the GoTax system. And before we get into the guns and the ghillies, I want to talk about that, because I will tell you, I made a huge mistake. And my mistake was not investing the $15 in the app, because when you guys pulled it out and what you saw, and I know, Josh, you're holding up right there, this thing is absolutely amazing from a strategic perspective, knowing where your teammates are and where people are moving and how the play field goes. Yeah. This thing was a game changer, and I made the mistake of going cheap and not getting the app. So maybe, you know, James, start with you, because I know, Josh, you've used it before, and I think, James, correct me if I'm wrong, this was your first time using it, is that right?
We're both virgins of that. Neither one of us tried it. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know you had the watch thing, and I thought maybe you'd use it, but maybe, so Josh, maybe start with you, because you just tell us what it is, and for those who aren't aware of it, because I wish I paid the $15 to have it. So go ahead. Sorry.
So the quick story is that the first time that I experienced this was at Southern Front, which is at my local field that I work at, D14 Airsoft. Shout out D14. I wandered into the command tent, and Josh was there, and he's hooked me up on my phone, showed me how it worked. I didn't actually use it during the event, other than just putting it in a pouch and leaving it, so that if anything, my commander could see my position, although they couldn't really communicate with me. So this one, I talked with Matt from Guerrilla Dynamics. Shout out, Matt's in the house. And we started off with a watch that was already loaded with all the maps and everything you needed. We beta tested it basically for the event. And what it is, if you guys don't know already, it's a online data service GPS system that is live, so you can see where all your buddies are. You can send messages, pictures, watch UAV, drone footage if you have it.
UAV was really cool. I only used it once on the Sunday, but I heard a drone, and I was looking. You could see the drone moving around on the screen, and you clicked on the drone, and it popped up with the live camera of it zoomed in and showing the enemy movements and showing the areas. It was very, very cool.
Hey, real quick, there was a question about comms. To be clear, a lot of us had comms. The problem was guys were running different frequencies, or, you know, sometimes the radios are sketchy depending on where you are in the distance.
550 players too, so they're going to bleed over. You can never rely on radios. I mean, it's like almost every time you get on the field and all of a sudden I can't talk to somebody. You were fine right before.
Good question. Again, a lot of us ran comms, but Josh, keep going, because this thing, this was well above what comms could give you.
So we ended up scratching the watch just for various reasons, decided it wasn't worth it. This is their EUD end user device, which is like a Galaxy with an 8,000 milliamp battery, so it lasts forever. It's super durable, it's waterproof to whatever rating, and it's an alternative to taking your phone, which is an option, which most people will probably do. So you pay the $15, download the app on your phone, both iPhone and for Android, and then you get to use a simpler version of what comes on this device. But if you don't want to bring your device, and you don't have to worry about a battery and a tether, you can just run this, put it in a pocket, and when you just want to look and see where something's at, open it up. You can send a message to the FOBs, to the commanders, to the game staff. The game staff were actually in their building with 2 screens of this just to see where everybody was, and they could move the game around and things like that. So definitely a cool thing from them. They're going to be doing rentals on these at the next event, so they'll have. Like
what was so good about it for me? It was instantly better. Lift it up, look, and see exactly where you are, and see the pings of all of your players live who had it.
Yep.
And if I heard movement in the forest or at the other side of the road, I could quickly look. If you saw that, and that's one of our teammates, and you knew that they were one of yours. And when we bumped into each other, we knew almost instantly, because he was looking at the ATAC as well. And I think this is one of the big things about the event, was there was a lot more of our team had it than the TAN team. We were green, and the TAN team didn't have so many people had it. I think we had like 3 times as many people. Yeah. They only had 50 people on the TAN with it. And for me, that was a big thing. We could see the front line, we could see where the gaps were, we could see where our team were pushing and where we held. And it was the intel that it provided, it was a game changer for me. And I went in it very skeptical about what it would give me, but it was a game changer.
No, I agree. And look, when I remember Josh and I were down, we just got out of Shantytown. He pulls it open. I'm looking at him like I guess until you see it yourself, you'll never appreciate how much information is on that little screen and how important it is at that moment, because it's showing you, James, what you said, where you are, where the other players or where your teammates are, the which building you're at versus the water tower. You have all this perception right in front of you that you can now move around. And without it, like I was struggling, like going through Shantytown, even with Patrick going building to building. Is that our guy up ahead? We couldn't tell because we didn't have the GoTac or whatever. It's called GoTac. Where if we did,
you see GoTac.
I
see GoTac in the comments. I mean, one of the things I wanted to put across in the gameplay that I put out yesterday from the event was I wanted to show how important it was. It's quite difficult to still keep the video exciting to watch and to show the GoTac being used, and it really was very useful. And it was probably more powerful than the gun and the ghillie suit on that day, I think, for me.
Or radio, even that. So, I mean, because comms aren't reliable, and you have to go through 4 people to try to get something across. Hey, took a command point, moving this direction. That's it. Leave it, set it, and forget it.
Exactly.
So GoTac, 10 out of 10. It's a winner for me.
No, agreed. So let's talk about the other thing too that I was well underprepared for was the right replica. Just for context, I went out there with an AEG that I typically shoot 2.8s with, an open play at ropes, but in this it was not enough replica or gun for this event. The shots were much farther than I anticipated. The BB weight was a lot less than what was needed. You both ran true milsim, I guess, style replica. So again, I ran an AEG with 2.8s. It was okay with anything within 100 feet, but after that I was pushing it. Maybe you guys can explain what you ran, because I think, James, you were so impressed with it. You're having one built now. But maybe, Josh, have you start, because I think James used your gear.
The model. James can talk about it, what he liked about it.
Well, I went to a milsim in Texas 2019, and Josh lent me this gun, and it's a Redline. It's called a Redline. I think it's an N7 milsim engine. So it's an HPA engine. A lot of guys, when they talk about HPA M4s, straight away they think, oh, Wolverine. And they tend to have an electronic fire control unit, and you have to fiddle with the dwell, and it's quite complicated. This is a very simple engine. It's mechanical, and it's only got semi, but there's no electronics. It's very, very simple. And it's super consistent, and it was lifting 4.8 perfectly in Texas. And I was blown away by it then. When I knew I was coming back, Josh said, "Oh, you can use the same M4 that you used in Texas." I was like, "Yeah, thank you very much." And if I'm right in thinking, it hadn't even been touched in like 2 or 3 years. In 3 years, 4 years now. It's 4 years ago, and it's perfect. And you can see in the video that thing lifts 4.8 at 1.5 joules. It's set at, and
it's actually lower, I think. I think it was actually even a little bit lower, maybe like 1.4 or something. We said, whatever, you don't really need the extra bits, you know. I know somebody in the video, the guy's like, oh, I can't believe that you shot me with that, and oh my God. You know, he doesn't realize that this is big boy rule, so it's like Nomad, 400 FPS or 320 on a 2.8 or 32, whatever they use. And when you can lift 48s, it makes a lot of difference, especially in a huge AO like that we play. You know.
Yeah, this is one. Even though there's a lot. The thing about the area was a lot of the buildings were closed off, and a lot of people were fighting between buildings and on corners of buildings. You did need range at this event. A lot of the engagements were over 50 meters, and so going back to your original point, Airsoft Dad, if you had a gun that couldn't reach past 50 meters, you were going to struggle at this field, I think.
I would agree. I mean, you guys, again, the shots, like I played with Josh most of the time just next to him, and he was taking 200-foot shots and hitting all day long, where mine are dropping at their feet or bouncing off them and they're not calling them. So I don't necessarily blame the player if they can't feel it, because I'm literally lobbing them in. But you guys definitely had the range, and that's based on the equipment you had.
And the ability. The good thing about HPA, good thing about this Redline engine is because it's got such high air volume, it has the ability to lift very heavy BBs, which most electric guns can't do that. It's obviously still within the same power limits as an AEG, but because of the air volume it puts out, it does some. I don't understand the exact mechanics of it, but it allows you to use the 0.48 gram BBs, which just gives you that extra sort of 10 meters, maybe 15 meters extra range over, say, a 2.8 or a 3.
No, agreed. And let's, so with the equipment, the other thing that was interesting when I was watching you guys play and others is the play style. Like, again, with open play, which is what I'm more familiar with, guys are rushing in, they get shot, they go back. Now with this field, because the walking distance from where you got hit to where you got to go revive was a huge distance, which is one of the reasons why I think fewer people are calling their hits from my experience. But when I watched you guys play, you were definitely kind of like this low and slow, methodical, creeping up on players, get to your spot, hunker down, and play the game from that spot for a period of time. Where, again, I was more run like I'm used to. So maybe just talk about, Josh, start with you, because, again, you and I play together. I know James is off because he likes to hide in back of vans and stuff like that. But you and I were at Shantytown. So maybe kind of talk about your style and have James do it. Because, again, I think you guys played the same way, but how you got to where you got to is a little bit different.
You know, I'm not getting any younger, Scott. So that's kind of why I picked up the sniping. Obviously, watching James' videos were a huge inspiration, but I needed something else at the time. For Airsoft wasn't interesting for me, so I delved into it, and I was like, well, this is great. I'm getting older. The knees don't go as well. So I think that plays a lot into it, too, and it's a lot of mind games. Sniping is really, it's almost like golf. You're playing against the field, not really the players, because they don't know you're there. You just, you know, I don't want to step here. It's too loud. If I go here, am I going to be able to get caught? Am I in a good defensive position? You know, where, sight, there's like a million things that go into it.
Yep.
And I was, just running like an AR for the event. I was running the AK, which is slightly different from what James was running. How do you think, James? You like it? Thanks for the tape, buddy.
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah, tape's sick, mate. Yeah.
Sick. This is not the electronic. It is a red line, though. It does have this.
I do, yeah. I mean, I think talking about the like respawn, and my mindset was partly that it's a long way to go back to respawn, but it's my style of play. I don't like being hit. I don't like being seen, let alone being hit. And if I'm seen and spotted, I'll tend to bug out, reposition, and try to disappear again, ghost away again. So it suited my style. To be honest, I enjoyed the challenge of moving between different areas and moving around unseen and ambushing. As someone just said, like, stop talking in the comments. Stop talking like special forces. I used to like you, but blah blah blah. Well, to play a game like this, you have to play like I travel from the UK to play against what I thought were going to be really good players at a really challenging event. So I brought my A game. I'm coming to play to win the game. I'm not coming to stand around looking good and pretending that I'm a soldier. I don't dress like a toy soldier. I wear a ghillie suit that is my design. I'm only using an M4 because that's what's available. If it looked like a spud gun, I wouldn't care. I come to play the game and to win the game. And to win the game, especially in an event like this, don't be seen. If you're not seen, you can't be shot at. Be quiet. If they can't hear you shooting, they don't know where you're getting shot. They're getting shot from, as I've shown in the video. Know where your objectives are. Know where your teammates are. Using intel. Use the technology that we had to be able to move, get objectives, be close to your respawn points, support your teammates, and no one's talking like we're special forces. We're talking like we're there to win the game. I was there to win the game, and that's how I played it.
Well, I think the point about not seeing you and getting hit, it kind of plays into the next comment or thing I want to talk about is the rules of the game. And I know Bo went in through the rules on the safety brief and the whole medic and the medic process, and he explained it. But even out there, a lot of people didn't understand the medic rule. And I don't want to get in the rules itself, but I do want to talk about, maybe, Josh, your thoughts is how the medic rule of the game for the day affected how people were moving around, calling their hits, not calling hits, just their own strategy, because I definitely feel like the medic rule of this game affected a lot of what was happening over that 2-day period.
Sure. Well, I spoke with Bo, and the company itself is seeing lots of new players, like guys that are just brand new to it, and a lot of it's going to be repetition. as far as going to safety briefs, which is super important. It's really important to pay attention to safety brief. Don't fall back on your open play rules, because that's not what we're here to do. And as far as medics go, we're lucky enough to have an awesome medic.
Yes.
And yeah. MacGyver, aka Magic Dragon, a good friend of mine, and he absolutely loves it. He's like, man, I got over 150 reses this weekend, and it was awesome, because most people are like, oh, I got 150 kills. I'm 40-3. You know, that's awesome. Those are awesome. But to be able to lift people back up, it makes all the difference. If you do any kind of online gaming, you know, a team that has an awesome medic that's throwing out medic bandages and getting people back up, that's the only way to march across the field if you're going to do it in a squad. You know what I mean? So.
Yep. No, I agreed. And then, James, like the aid stations, maybe for those who weren't there, explain where these aid stations were situated on the field, if you will, and what the aid stations' purposes were and how you could capture or defend.
Yeah, the aid stations were respawn points effectively. If you were dead, you could go back to a respawn point rather than go all the way back to your fob or FOB. Do you Americans call it FOBs or fobs? In the UK, we say fobs. I think fobs. So yeah, they were there, and you could move in and you could capture them, and then if they weren't under fire, you could go and respawn at them, and they were key. Essentially, even though the event was billed as a mil sim, and it had aspects of mil sim, the way it was organised and the squads, honestly, I think a lot of, especially UK guys, wouldn't call what it was as a mil sim, because to me it was essentially a very large land grab event, and the respawn points or the regen stations, once you grab those, you can then dominate that area of land, and it turned into a land grab, and they were key to the game. Once you could capture those, you could then dominate that area around each of the points.
Yeah, you end up having to be able to take one bandage off if you had two, so you could go back out and at least have one more life, you know, to try to get it out. And when you have motivated people, it's really tough to beat that. You know, and that was like our main objective, I think, was really just to hold that position, and then we basically held the town below it and the cars that were all piled up, and that was kind of our thing on towards the late part of Saturday. Was like, well, shoot, we fought so hard for this, and everybody's off James is off way out there. We're just going to hold back here and just wait for people to come to us, you know? So
yeah, I think on Saturday, especially when there were so many people, they said there was 1,100 players there. I'm not sure there was. I don't know. Maybe there was 1,100. But because there were so many players, you ended up with two front lines at the event. Even though it was a very large area, you could see the front line forming. And once you started grabbing the land, and there was a very definite front line, it was very hard to flank around or get between the lines on the Saturday. Sunday was a very different kettle of fish. There was a lot of people who dropped out on the Sunday, I think, due to maybe exhaustion or whatever reason. Maybe they wanted to go home early or long trips. But Sunday, there was probably half the number of players there, would you say?
Yeah, I would guess.
So,
because of that, on Sunday, we were at number 10, but on Sunday it was much easier to flank around, get between the lines, and on Sunday the aid stations weren't so important from my perspective, from the areas I was playing, because it was much easier to sneak around and get through the lines and get to areas by being stealthy.
So because of the size of the play area and the distances between aid station and the FOB, and I know we talked about this afterwards, drinking some beers, one of the recommendations, I think even Alphonse brought it up in the conversation, was just about helo drops. And maybe, James, if you want to kind of talk about that concept, and maybe that's even an idea and it's even done elsewhere, but just this concept of helo drops and how that just keeps players in the game longer versus just spending so much time walking back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, I think I did talk about this, and someone's mentioned there was a reason they couldn't do it because of insurance for players jumping out of the back of vans. But they did have big vans there that were used to transport players at the beginning of the game. What I would have liked to have seen is for the organisers, when they perhaps saw, especially on the Saturday, when they saw there was a front line forming and it was very difficult to break that, they could have perhaps used some of the vehicles as helicopter drops. So you could have said, right, there's an objective to do at this point, and we need 20 guys to drop off by helicopter, and the van could have driven and they could have dropped those guys off at anywhere in behind the enemy lines, and that would have perhaps caused the front line to be a bit more dynamic, a bit more uncertain, and cause some chaos. But I was told there's reasons they couldn't do that for insurance reasons, but I don't know whether that's true or not. But that's what I would have liked to have seen.
They've done it in the past, but they use their own trailer for it. So I think that it like they do it at Copperhead. I was actually discussing with how awesome those were when they did use those at Copperhead, and something like that, especially with the size of the AO. You don't want to help the players too much because you got to make your own fun, but that in itself is fun, and to be able to turn and go, well, I'm not going towards their fob now. I need to go this direction to go to this building, and that's got to be exciting, to be on the other end, the op fort waiting in enemy territory to get rushed. Yeah, it's definitely could be an option. I like the sound of helicopters too. I'm gonna need some like rotor spinning like in the truck, like a loudspeaker or something. I'm an immersion guy. I love
now
it.
Music blaring.
Yeah. Some Fortunate Son.
Yeah, something like that.
So one of the things that I liked, that I noticed a lot was it was this. Well, first off, the staff, right? So you had Bo and his leadership team about the safety briefing. Then we had the on field staff, right? Those that are helping, guiding, replenishing water, and things like that. So I want to talk about staffing, and before I do that, I just want to say thank you to everyone who volunteered their time to help us play this game, because I know there's dozens and dozens of people out there that just literally volunteered to make it a great day for us. But I want to talk about the field staff from your perspective, and I guess the importance of them. They weren't helping us, right? But the importance of them in keeping the gameplay going, because I noticed that the more staff there was in a certain area, the greater the pace of play. And I don't know if you guys noticed that as well, where if there was somebody watching the play, people were playing differently than if it was just player versus player and no one was watching. So I don't know if you guys picked up on that too, but it seemed like the play was more dynamic and people were doing what they're supposed to be doing when someone was watching versus when it was just 10 on 10 and no one around. Do you guys have any thoughts on staff or what you saw out on the field during that time?
I would have liked to have seen a bit more staff. I have absolutely no complaints with the guys that were doing it because they were in the middle of the firefights, but just because of the size of the facility. And unfortunately, when Big Brother's watching, you play slightly differently. Now, a lot of people, as much as it's an honor game, they don't necessarily be honorable. I did not really have any trouble. I know, Scott, you might have had a little trouble with that, which should be expected really in all airsoft, unfortunately. Yeah. You can try to root out the problem. It's just going to keep happening. So you just got to show your best example, but most of the people that I came up against, were pretty honorable. So,
yeah.
I did. I had no problem. I had no problems really with cheating. Everyone likes to talk about cheating in airsoft, and I'm pretty sanguine when it comes to cheating, because normally I'm in a hidden position, and if someone doesn't take their hit, it's normally because they're like confused because they can't see me, and then I just shoot them again and again and again, and it tends to look funny on camera, and whatever. Like, I generally don't react. The only time I tend to react is when it breaks the game. And when I mean break the game, so let's say you shoot someone from a hidden position and the player's dead and they're looking around and they see you and they go, "Oh my God, you're there. Look, guys, I was shot by that ghillie." That's breaking the game. And I'm like, "What the hell have you just done, dude? This is just ridiculous. You've actually broken the game." Now, there was a lot of players there, and I killed a lot of people. And there was 2 incidents that happened. One of them is on camera. One of them I've got footage of it. I didn't include it in the gameplay, but I might put it out as a reel. It's basically I'm shooting a guy and he's puts his dead rag on and he's sat there with his squad around him, and I've got him on my scope zoomed in and he's chatting to these guys, pointing to me. He's got his map out and he's pointing to these guys, and I'm like, "What are you doing, dude? You're like telling these guys exactly where I am, where I shot you from." I'm thinking of putting it out as a short. I might show people. Now, the point I'm making is there wasn't any staff around at that point.
Right.
And there was no one to report it to. Now, they're just 2 incidents, and it wasn't the staff's problem. Those players should never have been doing that in the first place.
No,
but apart from that, the staffing was excellent. I thought the event was brilliantly organised. I thought the way they did the briefings in stages, I thought the way the chrono worked, I thought the setup was really good, and I thought everything was fantastic. Apart from maybe there should have been more marshals on the field, because I saw twice very serious infractions that broke the game, and there should have been staff saying, "Right, this is out of order. You're wrong." let's sort it out. And they weren't anywhere near when it happened.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for me, like I said, "Oh, come on," so many times on Saturday. It became a joke to myself, and even James in your video, you said, "Oh, come on," because you're like, that I know it hit you, but you're not calling it. Now, most of the time where I didn't think people called, I give them the benefit of the doubt. Long shots, I lobbed it in. There was only one time where, Josh, you were way down on that road by Shantytown, and you're like, "Hurry up! They're coming," and I'm running down there with my son Braden, and all of a sudden I turn a corner, and they turn a corner, and there's like 50 of them, and all of a sudden this guy. There was this sheet metal wall, right? And he comes out between them, and I shoot him. It bounces off his shoulder. My son shoots him, bounces off his face, and he goes behind the steel. I'm like, all right, he's out. Well, next thing you know, he pops out, shoots both of us. I'm like, oh, come on, right? And but that part, that was the only time I lost my stuff. But even
here's the thing. Here's the important thing. It's really hard to marshal airsoft.
Yes.
It's all very well looking down your sniper scope, and even when you're looking down your sniper scope, you're still not 100% sure unless you actually hear it ping off their helmet and you see the BB bounce. It's very hard to be completely certain. And if you're just a marshal standing near players and you're not looking down the flight of the BB, it's very hard as a marshal to be able to sort of see it happen, let alone to marshal the occasion when it does happen. But there should have been. It's really hard to do this sort of. But what I would say is there is like some people in my comment section talking about us being too close to their fob in the comment section. You were too close. You're just cheating because you're shooting us too close to our fob. And I think there was a rule: you can't shoot into or out the fob from within 200 or 300 yards, whatever the rule was. Right. There should have been a marshal there to repeat. It's almost 2 weeks later, and there's still players in there in the comment section accusing me and others of cheating. Right. Organisers should be like, there was all sorts of combat going on around the area. From my perspective, that sort of stuff shouldn't be pinched in the bud. There should be an organiser coming on and saying, don't accuse these players of cheating. That was fair combat. Stop accusing players of cheating online. It's as bad, if not worse, for the community than it happening on game day. Like, you can have aggro on game day and everyone gets adrenaline and everyone has arguments on game day and then it's forgotten. But this is like 2 weeks later. I don't know. Yep. I think, yeah, there should have been more marshals when these occasions were happening. But it's very, very hard to. Well, we have as players,
if we don't take it upon ourselves to call our own hits, then the game is destroyed anyways. We have to just, yes, you hit me, I call it, I walk off, I get upset about it, but it's fair play. I never expect the marshals to be calling my hits. But my point was, yeah, as you said, when the marshals were around, the gameplay was completely different. Guys were more aware of what's going on, and so be it. I know we're already almost 40 minutes in. Two more points. Before we get into lessons learned and what we would do if we had to do it again, I want to just talk about the cost of the event and the value that we all got from the event. So it was roughly, if I remember, it was $250 a ticket plus fees and whatever, right? So it wasn't an inexpensive event. That's just to get in the door. Then we had all the stuff on top of, right? The gear, the food to get there. It was an expensive weekend for anyone who was there. But, maybe Josh, start with you since you've done so many of these events as far as the price and the value. I mean, let me just say this. It was worth it was worth it to me. It was worth it because I got to hang with you guys. I got to hang out with my son for a weekend. That's the best money I can spend. So gameplay aside, it was worth every penny. But maybe, Josh, what was your thoughts on that?
There was a lot of buzz about this event. I think because, one, it was during the summertime, and people have a bit more extra time to be able to go, and the area that it was in has a very strong airsoft community. A lot of people came from like Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana. And as far as like a ticket price goes, would I put it on par with their other events that are about that price? And I think that's going to be Copperhead, but it's much bigger. I would say this facility, although it doesn't have interior space like Copperhead does, it has many different everything. So you've got a church, a mosque, a train station, everything you can probably think of. So I think, from my standpoint, from driving, I didn't fly, brought my own stuff, and then the ticket. I spent probably a grip for the weekend, at least $1,000. But as far as the gameplay goes, there's always going to be another game. I had a great time, and in the end, I think spending time with you guys, getting to know James, getting to know you, we're all kind of like a different, aspect. He's in the UK, you're local, but you're new. That to me, you can't really put a price on. So, as an event promoter, you can put it on. You have to make your own fun.
Yep.
So, did I get my value for the event? Sure. And would I go to another AMS game? Yes, I definitely would go to another AMS game. Do they need to improve some things at this facility as far as the fobs and distance? Yes, very much so. But I've actually spoken with AMS, just chatting about how the event went, and some things we actually agreed on was the fobs need to be a little closer to promote more gunfights, since there is still a broad way to move around the facility, even if you're closer than we were. Even if it was just a football field each, I think it would have really changed the way the game played. So, my value, yes.
Yeah, pretty much concur. It's probably I think it's the most expensive airsoft event I've ever attended in terms of cost, but I thought it was amazing. I like ignoring the cost. I thought it was a great event. I thought it was very well organised. I thought there was a huge number of players there. It was really exciting. There was a buzz, and it was a stunning place to play airsoft at. It was a stunning place to visit. Just wandering around that place was like, wow, this place is so cool. It was great. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and I would definitely, yes, I would go again. I would go again, but it was expensive, especially flying from the UK.
Well, to say, there's at least one more person from the UK. We met a gentleman from Australia, right?
Oh, wow.
Some people came a great distance to play in this event. I'm assuming they're doing other things, at least in the US, and visiting with family or friends. But it's not inexpensive. Even if you drive in, as we did, it's still.
It's expensive. The only thing, I tell you what, the only thing that I was
guy.
disappointed in, there was nothing, I got no criticism for the way it was organised at all. I thought it was really good. I thought everything was fantastic. My only criticism is what happened on Sunday with a lot of the players dropping out. And it was like a lot, especially Tan, like we outnumbered Tan on Sunday. And that wasn't, And why did so many players drop out? What happened to them? Where did they go? Why did they go? I was expecting two days of like full on airsoft, and Sunday was it felt like people had taken their foot off the pedal a little bit.
Yeah, we had that crappy weather blow in early, right? And guys saw the weather like we're out. And
AMS actually did good. They went through their automated messaging system that goes to the text message on your when you sign up, and they give you, hey, boom, we're going to be pushing everything by an hour, so the game will be running an hour later. So that was nice that they did that. That's very rare. Usually it's just word of mouth. And although a lot of people did take off, I think that has a lot to do with the fact that a lot of people are local. But I have been to many of these AMS games that are in really cool locations that people just busted all on Saturday, and they got nothing left on the tank on Sunday. And it's tough, especially when you get older. You're like, oh my God, I got to get up at 6 a.m. on Sunday and Saturday to get to the AO. We were an hour and a half away, so from our family's place, so we would drive in, and that was kind of a beating, but where we stayed was worth it, I think. So
absolutely,
yeah.
No, I agree. So we're gonna wrap things up with the final thought here is just lessons learned. If you were to do it all over again, based on what you know, what would you do differently, if anything?
Can I use some advice? I have something to say about this.
Of course.
Okay. Cardio. It's like in the zombie land. If you don't have cardio, you're not going to make it, okay? You can look all operator, and you can wear all this cool stuff and wear $5,000 worth of stuff, but if you can't make it through the day, and you're unfortunately, there's a lot of people there who are overweight at the event, and I understand one reason or another, but man, it kind of ruins it for everybody else when you don't show up. Your presence, we really need you there because it makes the game even better, and we don't have to worry about imbalancing problems. But other than that, personally, I had some gun trouble, so I definitely could have done things better. I had a lot on my mind trying to make sure everybody was good and set, but I think overall my experience was good, and cardio, yeah.
No, it's a good point.
Yeah.
James, any thoughts? What would you do differently?
I don't think I would personally do anything differently, and I just want to say thanks to Solotron for putting me up. And if it wasn't for Solotron, I probably wouldn't have gone. He put me up in his parents' house and did all the driving. So for me, I would only do it again if I was able to hang with Solotron and be near him. And it was my absolute pleasure. And it's so cool to meet everybody. And obviously, the guys we were playing with, Savage Actual, were just incredible, absolute legends of human beings to be able to team up with those guys on an airsoft, play toy guns with guys who've done it for real in the real world is just incredible. And also Airsoft Dad, and just great people and great atmosphere, and it was just a really cool event. It's very easy to what do you guys say in America? Monday quarterbacking? Is that what you guys call it?
Yeah.
Armchair quarter. It's very easy to armchair quarterback events, but to put on an event for over 1,000 people and run it as smoothly as they did was fantastic, and such an incredible AO to play Airsoft at is it was a real joy to play at. And hopefully everyone can learn some lessons, players included, because I think some of the players, especially on Sunday, need to look at themselves before they. I've heard there is some criticism being made about the event online. I haven't seen it, but people have told me there's a lot of criticism from people, and I think maybe people should look at themselves before they criticise the organiser.
Well, I agree. I think if AMS would have done everything 100% perfect, people still would find something to complain about. You're basically creating an event for 1,000+ people who come from different walks of life with different expectations. You're never going to get it right. And the fact that they got as close as they did, from my perspective, I think was absolutely incredible. And my guess is if they were to do it again tomorrow, they would do everything the same and just tweak a few things and constantly get better and better. But the human element still exists. So even again, if they did it correctly, something would still be wrong, and someone's got to complain about something. Especially if you're a salty individual, or you don't have the means or the monies that some people have, right? They're going to find something to complain about because it was too much money and I didn't get my value. But the one thing I learned,
you got to make your own fun.
You got to make your own fun. And the one thing I learned from this thing, and I think I started with this, was just I didn't come with the right equipment. I should have brought my HPA. I should have ran the HPA. I should have ran 36+ gram BBs. And I would have had a much better day. But I was underprepared because I was so used to this gun slinging 28s all day long. And so that was my mistake. I just was undergunned, and I won't make that mistake twice. I'm in the process of building a DMR, so DMR style. So that's what I'm going to run with next time out. So
DMRs would rock at that field.
Absolutely.
Bring back the DMRs, AMS. Bring them back.
Just that style, right? Just get something with more weight. But guys, thank you for talking with me and catching up after the event. And I know we had people popping in and out, and we had a couple of questions. I know there's one question, James, real quick, maybe for you. Someone had asked, what's the difference between this U.S. gameplay versus the UK gameplay that you're so used to seeing?
I think the US players looked really cool. I think they all look really good on camera. Everybody looked very, very smart. But to be honest, I don't know. I don't want to diss. It was only the people I encountered, but I didn't think that the level of play was as strong as a lot of the UK players. But I think that comes down to maybe the UK scene is more used to getting felt up by ghillie snipers. The ghillie scene in the UK is much stronger than the US, perhaps, and maybe the players aren't used to facing ghillie snipers. Like on Saturday morning, there was a lot of guys going, "Oh, look, there's a walking bush! Ha ha ha!"
You must be,
that used to happen 10 years ago in the UK. Aren't you hot in that? Ha ha! Look, it's a walking bush. Funny Chewbacca noises. That was 10 years ago in the UK. I was surprised to hear it in the US, and it was very satisfying to get all the kills I did because of that. So yeah, that's the difference I found. Maybe they're not used to having invisible ghillie snipers to face.
And Josh, you heard that a lot because I was right next to you guys. Like, aren't you hot? And you're like, dude, it's ventilated. I'm in my underwear, basically.
Yeah.
That's
it, guys. That's all we wear. Lycra underneath. Yeah. Lycra pants and no BDUs because that stuff just traps heat. Yeah. You got to be smart about it. You run light. Plate carriers, to me, they're tough to get people to call hits just because it's like they have plates or plastic plates. It can be difficult, Shoot them in the head. That's what I say, right, James? Shoot them in the head.
Oh, 100%. Always shoot them in the head if you can.
Well, and someone just asked about grenades.
Can we edit that? Oh, no, this is live.
There's a ghillie question. I saw a ghillie question. Let me jump on that. Somebody asked me what you think about the ghillie suit matching the faction color. I think 100% it needs to be at least 75%. So that the base ghillie suit itself should be either green or tan. And then what you add to it. Now, if you're going to put a whole bunch of green on it, you're going to end up looking like the dude in James's video last time he came to the United States, and he got mistaken for somebody else who was wearing a completely green ghillie suit on the tan team. So I do think it is 100% for milsim at least to have a base of the color green or tan just to make it easier. And you're not going to be seen anyway, so who cares? I mean, honestly, you know, but people bitch and moan.
A tan suit, like at that AO especially,
Yeah.
a tan suit, a tan KMTS suit would have worked perfectly in the rubble. There's loads of areas because a tan ghillie suit would be brilliant in the urban areas. The green, not so good, but the green works. Whatever.
It worked.
Like,
Great.
It's
great.
It's fine. It's much better than having bands on your arm. That's for sure.
Yeah.
What about the use of grenades? Someone asked about grenades, and there was a lot of them being thrown. And what did you? I mean, your experience, Josh, more or less than what a typical event would be.
We bought 30. I don't think we threw maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was because most of the buildings were closed off.
Yeah, that's
most of it was. It was basically fight. It was I think we call it FIBUA in the UK, fighting in built-up areas rather than CQB. Excuse me. So it was like FIBUA, so it was like lots of corners, but it wasn't CQB.
Yeah. It's either a really close engagement or really long engagement.
One of the 3 times I was killed was by grenade, though, in the first 5 minutes.
Very nice.
No, me too. I got killed in the first 5 minutes by a grenade, and he got like 10 of us out at the same time. It was a great toss. And
I know you mentioned
kudos to that
falling
dude.
back a lot, James. I actually probably did that at least 10 times at this event because I kind of got caught by myself. And when I chuked the first guy, I'd noticed there'd be 4 guys behind him, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to outgun these guys, so I'm going to have to fall back. And then I did it. I mean, hell, Scott, I was running the other direction. I was like, hey, they're coming this way. Scott's going the other way, going towards it. Yeah, dude, falling back. There's nothing wrong with falling back, and I think that's a great strategy for milsim and anybody. You know, there's no big deal to fall back, especially airsoft. Even if you get hit, you can go back and try it again. But if you want to stay alive, if you're going to be somebody that doesn't like to get hit, then it's worth it to go find a better spot, reposition, and get them in, where they don't know you're at. So that's a good tip for all y'all new snipers out there.
No, agreed.
K-Factor in the house.
Yeah. So, Josh,
go
I
on,
would say one more thing because someone just made a comment about engagement distances, and maybe for the guys that stuck around, and I talked about it. But what would you recommend for individuals who are going to do an AMS event in the future? What would you recommend would be the BB weight and maybe the effective range that their replica should be set at for just to be able to have a good couple days out in the field? Because I know you guys are running 4.8s, which in my world that's heavy, but you guys loved it. So maybe just what would be the minimum and then maybe the ideal?
James, you had your own balls for sale, so you go ahead and send it.
Yeah, I would say minimum, realistically, point to get the maximum range, the heavier the BBs you can hop, the better. And I think your replica's got to be hitting at this AO. You've got to be hitting at least 60 meters, really 70 meters, to be able to have any decent engagements. That's not to mean there weren't any close range. There are areas like around all the rubble in the earthquake zone. There were areas you could have CQB, but I think you've got to have something that can hit 60, 70 meters, and the heavier BBs are better. I know Airsoft Alphonse with his LMG, he was using 4.8s in his LMG. And he was getting through like 1,000 and going back to his fob and reloading 1,000 4.8s and going back to his fob and reloading 1,000. He was like on the radio all the time. He was like, I'm out of ammo. I'm going back to the fob.
Right.
So yeah, I'd say 36, at least a 36, and you got to be able to make sure you can lift those. So make sure you do plenty of testing. At these events, everybody's going to have a Corvette. Everybody's driving a Ferrari. You know, there's. If you think that you're going to have like the longest ranging gun out there, good luck, because there's got to be 10 people shooting the same thing you do, you know. So, and
there aren't many fields I've ever been to where most fields I've been to in my life, I've thought I could play that with just an MK23 pistol with .48 BBs in. At this field, I think I would probably struggle to use just an MK23 pistol, just because. I think you could get away with it, but I think the ranges are so good. The unique feature of this field is the long range engagements for me.
Yeah, someone just asked a question about ghillie players being locked into using a bolt action, but that was neither the case for you guys. You both had M4 platforms and with air, so yeah, you could. There's nothing that says a ghillie must use a bolt action.
Yeah, so like I said again about plate carriers and people calling hits, especially when you're running one single BB, and it was tended to be kind of windy. I know, Scott, you mentioned you could see your BB and then it would just deviate around a corner because of the draft going down the buildings.
Yeah.
So with plate carriers with helmets on and all this gear and 10 mags, these guys are coming at you and you got one BB for an AMS game. If you can lift heavy weights and you have you got a PTS mag with 150 rounds in it, and it's quiet, it's just as good, if not better, than a sniper rifle.
Yeah, that's the reason I was super happy to use the M4 again, because I know what I expected to be up against good players in a difficult AO, and the ability to have those follow-up shots is something you don't get with that bolt action.
Airsoft on easy.
It was. It did. Using that red line M4 for me, because I 95% of the time I use bolt actions. That red line M4 was like easy mode for me.
I'm glad you liked it. I'm
amazing.
I love the
really
way
cool
that you gillied it up with the Scappa tape, which James had provided me with a roll, which is completely different from this awful brown stuff that I've been using, which is gaffer tape. So I'll be doing some reviews on that later.
Scappa tape rocks.
Scappa tape and some AGM. You guys need crafting materials. AGM's the way to go. So
thanks for the plug, Josh.
Yeah, man.
Guys, thank you for doing this. And James, I know it's late for you, so thanks for staying up. And Josh, thank you for the time. A couple guys players asked if we're going to post this later to watch the whole thing. Maybe if we could figure.
You share it, yeah. Airsoft, when you sign off, you can click share. Make sure you share it before you don't go delete.
Got it. And then maybe you guys, some of the questions that are coming in about equipment, tape, which ghillie suit, maybe you guys can share that and answer some of those questions because you have different perspectives. And but yeah, just share, because the whole purpose of this was to share our thoughts anyways. And you guys being the experts of the industry, especially for this event, it was meaningful to me to have you guys join me tonight and just kind of walk through it. So thank you both for that. And I'm looking forward to playing with you both again soon. So we got to make that happen.
On my way out, I just want to do a couple of quick shout outs to Matt and the guys at GoTech for providing us with the GoTech devices. Make sure you check them out on their Instagram and follow them. Also, Gilly Up is a crafting website in Canada. Hello, sir. I don't think I saw anybody else in here. Redline Airsoft providing all the awesome guns for us. Thank you very much to Jim, if he's still in here, the owner of Redline. And thanks to AMS for running the game, James for coming all the way out of nowhere, and Scott for putting this all together, and some people around my age, which is awesome. To be part of this game. We're the old folks, so it's awesome. I love it. Thanks.
I loved it. And James, any last shout outs for you? I know we got some folks from your neck of the woods.
Josh mostly for picking me up from the airport. If it wasn't for Josh, it wouldn't have happened. And Savage Actual for just being very cool with us on Saturday and just being part of the airsoft community. It's great to have them around. And thanks for doing this live stream, Airsoft Dad, and keep doing the content you're doing, because I really appreciate the stuff that you do. So good job, boys, and thank you to Airsoft to American Milsim as well for putting on the event. I appreciate the event being on. I loved it.
I agree with you guys. So thank you. I wish you guys both a great night. And thank you everyone.
Love you guys.
Spend the time with us.
Take it easy, boys.
Bye bye.